ahead and get started. First of all, I wanted to take this opportunity on behalf of our Board of Education to welcome everyone to our annual State of the Schools. And it's we were just talking today, it's a lot of fun to be able to just share some updates about some of the neat things that have been and are happening and will be happening in the Amherst Schools as we look to the future. And before we go ahead and get into the program, I wanted to introduce, I think actually all 5 of our board members are able to be here this evening. So I wanted to start with our board president, Rex Engel, vice president, Mark Zappa, Ron Jacobozzi, Valerie Neidert, and Teresa Gillis. So again, thank you for being here. And kind of what we were thinking for this evening is I'm just going to go over a few things here at the very beginning, some big picture things, and then Mr. Molnar, our assistant superintendent, is going to share some academic updates, things that are happening in our educational program. Sarah Walker, our director of student services, is going to talk about some of the new programs and some of the things that we've started in the area of student services. And then Amy Giaffrido, our treasurer, is going to provide a financial update. And then, of course, at the end, 30 minutes or so, give or take, you'll have an opportunity to ask us any questions you may have, and we'll do the best we can to answer those. But I thought it'd be good to start out with our mission statement. And we've actually been talking at the board office the last few days about spending a lot of time talking about high-quality programming and how it fits into our school mission. And this is what really drives our decision-making. And we're constantly looking and searching for ways to implement high-quality educational programs into our schools. Not just academic programs, but community service type programs, just programs that run the gamut in terms of providing students with a meaningful educational experience. As I mentioned, we're going to start out, I'm going to talk about some big picture things, and then we'll move into, as I mentioned, an academic, student service, and financial update. But I thought I would take just a minute and talk about really the big picture view of what's happening in the Amherst Schools. And certainly we have a lot to feel good about, a lot to be proud of, but at the same time, we never want to become complacent. We're in a position where we're financially stable, but we have to be very careful and strategic because we want that financial stability to continue into the future. As I mentioned, academically, we've been able to produce some very good, our students have been able to produce some very good academic results. Mr. Molnar is going to talk about some recognitions and some state awards that have kind of come our way as a school district, which is nice. We've been able to expand our offerings over the last few years. We've been able to do things like add all-day, everyday kindergarten. We've added orchestra at Nord. It's moved into the junior high. It is now here at the high school. We've expanded our elective offerings. It was kind of neat. I just talked to a parent a couple of months ago whose daughter took the forensic science elective here a couple of years ago, and it sparked an interest, and she ended up getting a scholarship and is now attending Bowling Green State University, I think it is, and majoring in forensic science. And that was an elective we didn't even have 6 or 7 years ago. So, yeah, that's an example of one of the expanded offerings that we've been able to provide here at the high school, amongst many others. The junior high, we actually have, and I know Mr. Molnar is going to talk about this as well, a number of new electives that will be offered at Amherst Junior High this next year. In the area that we've really spent a lot of time this year kind of discussing and looking at different options as we look to the future is this whole idea of providing additional supports for our students and for their families. And for the first time this year, we added a social worker, and we're planning to add a guidance counselor as we look to next year, and Sarah Walker is going to talk a little bit about that. Financially, as I mentioned, we're in a very stable position. Amy's going to go into some of those details again later in the program. The big thing everybody's talking about right now in Amherst, just had a conversation with the mayor a couple days ago about this, and we're in the process of setting up. We've actually had a couple of tours. We've had 2 tours so far, and we're scheduling a number of other tours throughout the spring and summer as we move towards the opening of the building next January, and had an opportunity to talk to some business folks here in town, talking to the mayor and some other city leaders. And the neat thing about this project is it's not just school staff and parents who are excited about this, but I think it's something that our entire community is really excited about. I was just at the county administration building today talking with someone who doesn't live in the Amherst School District, works at the county administration building, and was asking about a tour of the building when it opens, just because he's heard about it, he's heard about the design, and no connection to Amherst, but interested in the elementary school, and eventually wanting to have a tour. So you can see it's kind of a neat picture. We have a gentleman, I think, Chuck Grimmett, our buildings and grounds supervisor, actually ran across a gentleman that lives just south, I think, of the property, and he provides us with a lot of quality pictures of the building as we go through various stages of construction. I think it's Eric Youngwus, I think, is his name. You probably see it on Facebook every once in a while. You see pictures of the building, so we certainly appreciate Eric and the pictures that he's providing for us. The building project is going very well. We are on track. The building is scheduled to be turned over to the school district in November of 2019, this fall. And we're planning on the first day for students to be that Monday, January 6th, after our holiday break. We are planning to transition our third graders mid-year from Nord to the new elementary school. That was something that we talked a lot about. We had two parent feedback listening sessions, had a lot of input from parents of next year's third graders. We had a transition committee that was in place that was made up of a number of different staff from across the district, and we really talked about this transition issue, and felt that the best thing was to make that transition mid-year, and there's some different reasons for that. Some of them related to transportation, which I'll get to here in just a couple of minutes. But we will be ready to go January 6th of 2020. The roofs, ductwork, electrical, drywall work is going very, very well. That has been completed in some of the areas of the building. Some of the other areas, it's still a work in progress. Student-staff transition. One of the reasons why we decided to postpone, actually a couple of reasons, to postpone the opening of the new school until January is to provide a little bit of a cushion there from the time the building was complete until we actually moved in. One of the things that we were able to do is to save some money and to avoid some overtime costs by delaying the start of or the opening of that school until January, and we were able to put those dollars back into the project. The other thing it does is it gives us like a 2-month kind of transition period where we can begin to move some staff materials and to make kind of a gradual transition into that building over a 2-month time frame. And we're hoping that once the building opens in January, because of the work that we'll be able to do in November and December, it'll make for a smoother process. A lot is going to be happening during those 2 months. One of the things we're going to do, we haven't set a date yet, but of course we'll have a community open house, if you will, where everybody will have an opportunity to stop by and take a tour and see the new building. So this is something, obviously, that we're very, very proud of, and it's just kind of a neat thing to see the progress day in and day out. And these tours have really been, I know some of the folks I think in this room have had an opportunity to participate in the tours, and to be able to walk through the building is certainly kind of a neat thing. So next thing I wanted to talk about, somewhat related to the transition, but really it's bigger than that, is transportation. And we have the opportunity this year, I should say next year, in planning for next year, to bring back high school busing. This is something that I think, due to some financial struggles back in the mid-2000s, the high school busing was eliminated. And we haven't had high school busing since. And every year we get a significant amount of feedback from parents about high school busing and talking with our high school folks and just calls that we get at the board office about the challenges that this presents families, especially for families that have freshmen and sophomores, was just something we have always wanted to address, but just haven't been able to do so for a combination of reasons. But due to the consolidation of schools, and now that we're down to 4 schools, we have 2 bus routes. And because of that, we're able to reinstitute high school busing at minimal cost to the district, because we already have the 2 bus runs. Back when busing was first eliminated, back I want to say it was 2005 or 6, the district at that time was operating 6 schools and there were 3 bus runs. So elimination of high school busing eliminated a bus run, which obviously eliminated some cost. But now that we've consolidated, this is a benefit of consolidation, that we're going to be able to have 2 bus runs, and that first bus run will be junior high and high school students, essentially 6 through 12. For the most part, it'll probably be grades 6 through 10. I know a lot of our juniors and seniors like to drive, so realistically it'll be mostly 6th through 10th graders on that first run, and then of course Nord and Powers will be on that second run. That will be a K-5 run. The other thing that does is that really not only does it provide transportation for our high school students, and I know we really think that's going to help with tardies and attendance and those kinds of things at the high school. But the other thing it does, it helps us with this transition of 3rd graders because they'll be on the same bus run the entire year. They'll just be dropped off at Nord the first semester, and in the second semester, the 3rd graders will go to Powers. So it was just one of those things that kind of came together for us and just worked out for us on a district-wide level. So that was one thing I wanted to share from a district perspective. The other thing is safety. This is something that we talk about in almost every one of our administrative meetings, is what can we do to improve safety and security in our schools, around our schools. And we're very fortunate. We've got a great partnership with the City of Amherst and the Amherst Police Department. In fact, Chief Kucharik and Lieutenant Cawthon and some other folks were here from the police department at our March board meeting. And it was at that time that we officially announced our second school resource officer, Brian Bowers. So Brian is going to be with the schools full-time next year. He's actually already working kind of part-time. They're still trying to get the schedules coordinated. I know he's been in and around our schools over the last couple of weeks here, but next year he will be full-time, and when the new building opens, the nice thing is we will have a resource officer on the elementary junior high campus, and then we'll have another resource officer, Officer Layfield, here on the high school Nord campus. So that really cuts down on our response time, and again, we're just very grateful to the City of Amherst and the Police Department for that very beneficial partnership. So at this time, I want to turn it over to Mike Molnar, our Assistant Superintendent, and he's going to talk about some academic things.
Thanks, Steve. All right, goes without saying that Amherst is one of the top academic school districts in the state of Ohio. So I'm going to start with something we shared back in November, and that is our momentum award. Now, I do give a disclaimer, the momentum award does have to do with state testing. We know in Amherst that state testing is not the top priority, but at the same time, the last couple of years, after Clark, state testing has gotten more reliable, it's been consistent, and quite honestly, it is the one measure that we can look at students across the entire state of Ohio to see how they're doing. So when we get an achievement or reward, or an award based on our academic success, it's something that I think we should take note of. The Momentum Award has to do with growth. Okay, so on the report card there are kind of 2 different measures that people look at. One is the passage rates of how students are passing the achievement test. The other one is a student's growth. Now, when it comes to passage rates, we all know that that's really related to the zip code, right? We know students in top communities have better passage rates. And you could have really predictors about their success based on where they live. Let's be honest. But it's not the same with growth. Growth has to do with, it doesn't matter if a student is in the 5th percentile, 50th percentile, 9th percentile, wherever you are, we expect there to be at least a year's growth, or hopefully more. The Momentum Award is directly related to the growth of a student. And it is given for districts that have 4 A's in that growth or value added. Now, the state looks at overall growth of all students, it looks at students with special needs, and it looks at students at risk, that's socioeconomic status, and also on the other end of the spectrum, your gifted students. So it's looking at everyone, and Amherst got 4 A's last school year in value added or growth. It is one of only 70 districts in the state of Ohio who received the award for those 4 A's. That's out of over 600 school districts. Not only did we win the award last year, but we won the award 3 years in a row since it first started. And so when you look at the data on that, there's only 28 school districts in the state of Ohio who've won the Momentum Award 3 years in a row, and we're one of them. So that speaks a lot about the academic success of Amherst. And I want to mention also, in the fall, the Amherst Junior High School and Nord Middle School also won Momentum Awards for 4 A's in value added. That's also a big deal. There were, I think there are 80 schools in Lorain County. Only 4 Momentum Awards were given out for schools, and of those 4, 2 were Amherst Junior High School and Nord. So again, it speaks a lot to our teachers, also our parents and community members who value education. Again, test scores are not the end-all be-all, but certainly it is a great measure, and we take pride in what we can accomplish. That's kind of a short-term legacy of Amherst so far the last couple of years. I also want to focus on what's coming ahead next year. If you've paid attention at all, over the last few years, we've done a lot in Amherst. As Steve mentioned, adding all the kindergarten, orchestra programs. We've added a lot of College Credit Plus classes at the high school. We've added AP courses, a lot of cool electives like forensic science, criminal justice, and so on. And we want to keep continuing that pattern, not only at the high school, but in all buildings. I want to start with Amherst Junior High School, because like Steele, next year we're trying to do a lot more with electives at Amherst Junior High School. So I'm pretty excited about that. If you look at the list, Amherst Junior High School is going to expand. These are all brand new for next year. There's going to be some coding electives for students to get into coding. Design 1, which is kind of a very beginning kind of engineer kind of class. There's a character and leadership course they're going to offer students, which is a really big deal. As I look at our students that are graduating at Steele, I'm just amazed at what students can do these days. I mean, we're talking about students that hold 2 jobs, volunteer at the animal shelter, the homeless shelter. They are in 3 different sports. They get straight A's. It's amazing what kids can do these days, and leadership is a big part of that. Also, there's an advanced PE they're going to offer, which has to do with like lifelong physical fitness and education and health. Studio art, which I'll talk about for the high school in a moment. They're going to have an intro to world cultures that they're going to add for students to explore more than just Spanish and French, and look at different cultures and different languages. History through film was a creative one that came up with by a teacher there. Space exploration. One example is recently there's a picture of a black hole, which is kind of brand new. That's kind of something that we'll be talking about. And then intro to broadcasting. So those are all brand new electives for Amherst Junior High School next year. One thing I want to add about that too is next year's course of study when it comes out for junior high. One thing that junior high is also going to add is they're going to add, I think what Mr. Gibson's calling career paths. So when students look at the different courses and different electives, it's going to say like if you're interested in engineering, check out Design 1. If you're interested in technology or computing, check out coding. If you're interested in science, check out space exploration. So I think it's going to be a really good thing to start gearing kids to prepare for what they need to look at in junior high in preparation for high school when they have even more things to choose from. At Steele, we're adding a new AP course called Studio Art. Most of our AP courses are in science and math and social studies. And not many times people think of AP as a course in the arts. But I'm very excited about that with art teachers Chad Franco and Tony Trenzo, along with Principal Gibson and Assistant Principal Harrigan. They came up with an idea to provide AP Studio Art. which is really awesome. And I'm telling you, it's rigorous. I looked at what they need to accomplish in their portfolio. It is not an easy class at all. So it's really a great offering that they're going to have at Steele. And on a side note, real quick, when Mr. Teller, I think, presented that to the Board of Education, I think back in December, he had a couple students that came and spoke. And one of the students was going to be a senior next year and was so excited that, you know, she's not a straight A student, but her passion is in the arts. And she was so excited that before she graduated, she'd have a chance to take AP Studio Art before she graduated. So I thought that was just a cool story. It's very touching. It's awesome. Spanish is coming to Powers next year. In 2020, and then also NOR the following year. We're very pumped up about that. So we're looking for Spanish to be offered K through 12 come 2020. One of the reasons that we're able to do that is because the decline in enrollment that we've been experiencing for the past 6, 7, 8 years is now hitting the high school. Along the way, we've been able to keep teaching staff along with enrollment with the trend. While we do reduce teachers through attrition and retirement, one of the things we've been able to do is look at how we might utilize teachers in different ways, and also to add teachers at the same time we're reducing. So after we reduced a few teachers over the years at Powers and NOR, when the enrollment trend was going through, we had found a spot where we were able to add 4 teachers for kindergarten to provide all the kindergarten for the district. The same thing happened with our technology integration specialist. We added the orchestra a few years ago. We're adding a new orchestra teacher into the mix, social worker this year, guidance counselor next year. I'm taking Sarah's thunder.
Take my slide. Take my slide.
Yeah. But I mean, smart leadership is able to look at trends, but also make great decisions about that. So when the course request came in, and we were, of course, very low on Spanish, and we're going to be losing about 300, 350 students over the next couple of years at Steele. One of the things we decided to do was see if we can offer Spanish at the elementary, utilizing one of those teachers from the high school. And that's what we're going to do. So we're very excited about that. And finally, I want to mention one more opportunity. Earlier in the year, when Mr. Taylor came on board, we had some discussions about just students having a global awareness and a global perspective. When I look at colleges today, so many students are studying abroad. Whether it's a week at spring break, a month in the summer, or an entire semester where they're gaining all their credits abroad in China, India, Spain, England. We wanted to start providing opportunity for our students here in Amherst to start preparing for that in the future. So in spring break next year, we'll have a learning abroad opportunity to Costa Rica. It's open to all students. It's not open to just your Spanish students or students in a foreign language. There is a meeting tomorrow night, actually, right here in this space. The first meeting about that. Lisa Volzer, who is a Spanish teacher, but also our student council advisor, will be leading that opportunity. I'm really excited about that. So there's one trip next year. We're hopeful that in the following years, we'll expand to maybe 2 or 3 trips to offer our students. Not only the learning about cultures and diversity, but also I'd like to see us offer some trips maybe in the summer that have more to do with service, working with underprivileged students, communities, countries, and look at how maybe through those trips, students can earn high school credit, possibly even having an elective. But also, I am looking into how teachers who attend may also earn college credit if they attend with the students, to earn college credit too, because they'll be doing some work also in those areas. So there's a lot of things I think on the horizon that's really cool about that. And I do think it's important as our students look to go to college that they have more global perspective, because so many times I hear students say, that's not something I really want to do, but then when someone does it, they say, it was the best experience of my life, and I'm so glad I studied abroad. So we had to bring that to Amherst, and I think we're excited about that. So with that, if you have any questions about academics, or curriculum, or instruction, or all that state testing, feel free to contact me anytime. So this time I'm going to turn it over to, I think, Sarah for student services.
Yes. So here's my slide. Everybody's already talked about it. Just kidding. Thank you, Mr. Molnar. My name is Sarah Walker, and I'm the Director of Student Services. And my role here in the district has really evolved and expanded, and I'm really excited about that because, you know, while a bulk of my focus has always been our students with special needs and our students on IEPs and 504s and receiving additional supports from that, we've really started to take a look more at the social emotional wellness of our kids and the mental health of our kids, and looking at how we can provide supports for our kids and our families. Because it's not just about what we can do during the day, because as we all know, I've sat in so many team meetings where we're rallying around a student, and I hear, but it's only good for these 7 hours, and what happens after? And so we are so lucky this year to have been able to add our social worker, Jill Majorca, to our Amherst community. She is working in each of the buildings, and she is providing a variety of supports at very, very different levels. Sometimes she's going into classrooms and doing consultations for teachers to kind of help troubleshoot student behavior, students that might be struggling to maintain time in their seat or regulate their emotions a little bit. She's working with our guidance counselors to provide group activities and small group supports and counseling services where they're working on managing their emotions. What does it feel like when I'm getting upset or I'm getting angry? And what are some ways that I can manage that? But beyond in the classroom and beyond sitting in the meetings within the building, she's also working with our families. And she's also going into the homes and going to the places where they work. Sitting in on attendance meetings and then working with the families to really find out what's keeping some of our kids from coming to school. And doing a lot of follow-up and a lot of support with that. And so we're so thrilled that it's, our guidance counselors do a fabulous job, but what Jill's able to do is take what the guidance counselors do and then take it home for the kids and help build that bridge between what's going on in the classroom and in the schools and empowering parents to access resources and services in the community. So she's been a fabulous addition. The other thing we're looking at is if you look at our current capacity for our guidance counselors, we have a part-time person at Powers, 2 part-time people at Nord, a 1.5 person at the junior high, and then 3 full-time guidance counselors at the high school. So that means we have 2 people spread between 2 buildings, one between Powers and Nord, one between Nord and the junior high. And when it comes to looking at our kids' evolving social emotional needs, that's really spreading things thin. And so one of the things we're looking at doing next year, and actually we're not even looking to do it, we're in the process of interviewing now for this position, is hiring an additional guidance counselor to focus on Nord. So then we will have Jill Coleman focusing on Powers and being able to dig deep and work with teachers and students at Powers. We're going to have a new guidance counselor at Nord. Then we will have our 2 at the junior high and our 3 at the high school. So no more, trying to be in the right place at the right time. Because those of us that have been split between different places always know that the fire is somewhere I'm not. And so this way we can have our guidance counselors in the buildings to do that extra help, be that extra person, and provide that additional support. And so that's just something that's a wonderful thing that the district is being able to add to support all kids within our district. The final thing I want to talk about today are our parent and community engagement events. And this is something that has been a collaborative effort among a variety of different community agencies along with the Amherst Schools. And we've been meeting and talking about programs and educational services we can provide for our students, as far as drug and alcohol awareness, addiction awareness, making choices, empowering our kids to make good choices. But the thing that we're looking to extend beyond is, again, going to that parent and community piece. And so we have 2 events coming up this year for the remainder of the 18-19 year. And then we have a group getting together to start planning several events to occur throughout the 19-20 school year next year. So upcoming this year, if you want to mark your calendars, is April 24th. We've got some clinical psychologists from Mercy Health coming out to talk to us about creating balance, managing stress as parents so we can help better support our kids. And what that program is going to talk about is, what does stress look like in adults? What does stress look like in kids? Because it's different. And then how we're managing our stress as adults and as parents, how is that impacting our kids? And what ways and what places can we look if we need help with that? And so that event is going to be at 6 o'clock next Wednesday, the 24th, at the junior high. The other event we have coming up this year is May 29th, which some of you may be aware is our last day of school with kids this year, and that is going to be here at the high school. And what that is going to be Operation Street Smart, which was put together by the Franklin County Sheriff's Department, and it's an adult education, drug education program. And they come in and they do a very powerful presentation showing us what the look-fors are. What do we need to, what terms are being used? And where are, our kids are getting sneaky, where are they hiding stuff? So that we can empower our parents, empower our community to kind of help out our kids as they're moving into those sometimes unsupervised, definitely unstructured days of summer. So that's on the 29th, and that'll be at 6 o'clock here at the high school. So keep an eye out for those. Also keep an eye out for a survey that's going to be coming out at the end of this month, because we want to hear from you. We want to hear from the community. We want to hear from the staff. What kind of topics are important to you that you're seeing with your kids? Do we need to address social media? Do we need to address anxiety? Do we need to address ADHD? What things are you looking for that we can help bring in to provide information to our parents and community? So those are just some of the things we've got going on. And up next is going to be Miss Amy talking to us about the finances.
The crowd goes wild. The crowd goes wild. I'm Amy Trifrito. It's nice to meet you. I know some of these faces. I have the distinct pleasure this evening of speaking to you about a district that's very well run. We have much financial stability, and it has been a decade of fiscal prudence. So what we want to share with you this evening is, even though we can offer this incredible educational environment with additional offerings, moving around as staff, additional support systems for our students, we still have the total cost per pupil $2,500 below the state average, and it's the lowest in Lorraine County. And then you'll see here, and this is all information that's available in the district profiles. We are among the 20% of Ohio public districts with the lowest operating expenses per pupil. And what's amazing, again, is that this all fits into the mission statement for the district by providing these excellent educational environments and yet still maintain fiscal prudence. It shows great forethought in our decision-making and our planning for budgets, which is what we're again doing for next year and the year thereafter. Continuing on with financial stability, you'll see that the next ballot issue will not be until the 2022 school year, and this is simply a renewal of the levy that was most recently renewed in 2017. There will be no increase in taxes, which is always a wonderful thing for our constituents to hear. And we still maintain that we will be financially stable through at least 2022 with the renewal of that operating levy. We have a series of smart decisions that go on day in and day out at the district offices and throughout the district. There's been great forethought in the consolidation of buildings, contingency planning, operating savings through looking at agreements with vendors and things like that. And then community partnerships, and that's one of the big takeaways this evening, is that we wouldn't be able to do everything that we do without having built and maintained and sustained these incredible community relationships. And then I'm going to give it back to Mr. Sayer.
Thank you very much. Again, thank you to Mike and Sarah and Amy. And I did want to expand upon Amy's point about being financially stable through at least 2022. The reason we say at least is because so much of our budget is dependent on what happens in Columbus. So we know that we're in good shape through at least 2022, and we anticipate and are going to do everything we can in our power to keep that moving forward in years beyond 2022. But there are certain things that are beyond our control, and that is, one of the things is what happens with the state budget. Of course, that process is underway right now, and the governor has presented his budget That's being, I think, worked through the House at this point. The Senate will take their turn, and then hopefully by the end of June, we'll have a state budget that works for public schools, not just in Amherst, but across Ohio. So that's why I did want to clarify that. That's why we use the phrase "at least," because we do get a significant portion of our revenue from state sources. Just wanted to finish up with a couple of pictures. One of the things that I really appreciate about our school district is that, you know, we talk a lot about, and we focus on, Mike had talked about test scores, and there's just so much that goes into a high-quality education that's not measured on the state report card. And certainly, those scores are important, and we can learn from those scores, whether it be in math or language arts, and we're very proud of the Momentum Awards and those kinds of things, but there's so much more that we're about as a school district. And one of the things that we believe in is a strong arts program, music education. That's why we wanted to include the picture of the band here. Of course, we've talked about the addition of orchestra, other things like what it means, teaching kids what it means to be a good citizen, what it means to give back to your community, to what it means to be a person of good character, and so many things that don't show up on that state report card, and we want to continue to highlight those things. The other thing that I wanted to mention, and this is Ashley Harrigan and her family, wanted to include that picture, but one of the things we started, I wanted to thank Sarah Kuspel. I don't know if Sarah's here tonight, Powers PTO president, but she came to us with this idea of setting aside 2 nights a year where we wouldn't have any practices, events, any after-school activities, and just a time for families to take a step back, to pause, and spend time together as a family. And so we did the one date, I think it was November 20th or something like that, and the date here just a couple of weeks ago. And the feedback has just been incredible with these family first nights. And so we actually have already set the dates for next year. We've emailed those dates out, so hopefully they can be included on your calendar. But I even received a message from a parent in North Ridgeville, and another one sent me a message. It was either Avon or Avon Lake, and their idea was that the Southwest Conference, all 10 schools in the Southwest Conference should get together and do a family first night at least once or twice a year. So it's just been kind of a neat thing, and the stories we've heard, and you know, activities, whether it be going to a family movie, going out to dinner, just staying home, playing games, whatever it may be. It's just been a neat thing. Wanted to share a couple of other pictures. Wanted to highlight, this was actually just a week or so ago, Erica Kaufman was named an Innovative Educator by WVIZ, and actually we have had 3 Amherst teachers that have been named Innovative Educators over the last, I think it's 4 or 5 years, more than any other district. We have 3 of them. I think in the last 5 years, and Erica most recently here just last week, and we had a nice chance to spend some time at downtown Cleveland, and Erica presented to a room full of educators, and certainly very, very proud of what our staff is doing. And it's so neat to look out here, because I see board members, I see teachers, I see support staff, I see parents, I see students, and that's what it's all about. It's about everybody coming together, working together, supporting one another, and ultimately doing what's best for our kids and community. So again, just want to highlight the good work of you know, of our staff there. And then again, we talked about expanding educational opportunities, and this is a program that we get asked about on a regular basis. When I'm at meetings and different places in the county and so forth, our Med Tech program is something that gets talked about a lot. And Kim Haney just does a wonderful job with this program, and students have an opportunity to earn credit through the community college. And again, just wanted to highlight that as an example of something above and beyond that we're providing here in Amherst that most folks are not able to provide. And I also would mention another unique program. We have Steel News Live, and actually Mark Lowry's here tonight running the video camera. And again, a great program that has received all kinds of accolades for their work, and again, just highlighting programs that in many ways are unique to Amherst. So again, thank you, Mr. Lowry. And at this time, what we wanted to do is take just a little bit of time and open the floor up for any questions that you may have about anything that you may have heard this evening, or any other thought or question that you may have about anything that's happening in our schools. We'd love to do our best to answer your questions. So at this time, I'll open the floor up. Yes?
So I didn't realize that only third grade is transitioning to the new school next year, not K through.
Yes, K2, yes, I should have clarified.
Okay, I did not realize that from like everything that had kind of been put out there. I thought it was everybody, so.
Yeah, the entire,
Powers will go the next.
yes, I should have been.
Okay, that's, okay.
Yeah, Powers,
All
the
right.
entire building, K2, will be starting the year in this building.
Right.
And then in January, we'll go to the new building.
But
The
Nord
third graders
going-
will go to Nord for the first semester,
Okay.
and then they will transition to the new building the
Okay.
second semester.
All right.
Yeah, I
No,
apologize.
it's
That was
okay,
not,
thanks for clearing that up.
but yes, the entire body, because I know we've actually, we're in the process now of making plans for the Powers building, and we've got some plans for the bus garage and some parking over there. But yeah, the key, the kind of the grade that we really had to work through was that third grade group. Because again, starting at Nord and then with the opening of the school, do we keep them at Nord for the entire year, or do we move them to the new building mid-year? And ultimately, we decided, after hearing from another number of folks, that let's move them to the new building. So, yes, thank you. Yes?
How you doing, Steve? I have several questions. One of the parents, my daughters come here. In the middle school or junior high, the electives, are those going to be dual credits for the high school as well?
Will they be offered for high school credit?
Correct.
I don't believe so.
Okay.
I don't, unless, yeah, Mr. Muller, yeah, I don't believe any of those courses will be for high school credit.
Now, the other question I had was, you said there was a decrease in enrollment. What's the cause of the decrease in enrollment?
Yeah, actually, it's funny you mentioned that. Just had a conversation, I think I mentioned earlier today, I was at a meeting at the county administration building, and Amy and I were talking with a couple of gentlemen there about trends across not just the county, but across the state. And when we were preparing for our ballot issue, which ultimately was on the ballot in November of 2016, a couple of years prior to that, we did an enrollment study. And as part of the Ohio Facilities Commission planning process, we learned at the time that 75% of the districts in Ohio had experienced some kind of declining enrollment over the previous 10 years, which was really staggering to me. I never would have imagined that 3 out of every 4 districts over that 10-year period previously had lost enrollment. Obviously, to varying degrees, some districts more than others. So it's one of those things that it's almost a statewide phenomenon. When you look specifically here at Amherst, over the last 50 or 60 years, you see this kind of this roller coaster where we have periods of tremendous growth, like we would have had back in the 90s and early 2000s, when you had developments like Apple Orchard and Westchester, and those types of developments were built, whereas over the last 10 years, we've been on a declining enrollment. We were at about 4,300 students in 2008. Now we're just a shade over 3,600 students. So we're just in one of those cycles. Our enrollment, it's so interesting when you look at it. At the high school, every class is 320 or larger. And in K-8, every class is 290 or less. We actually have, I don't know if it's the third grade, this year's third grade class, or I think it's the third grade class, there's about 220 in it. Would be our smallest. So you can see there's quite a disparity. So what's been happening is we've been graduating these classes of 320 and replacing those classes with, kindergarten classes of 220, 230, 240, and that's why we've been on a declining enrollment. But that will change here in about 3 or 4 years. As those big classes graduate from the high school, we're going to see things start to turn the other way. And of course, you're seeing some housing developments and that kind of thing. And I think the new elementary school, Mike and I have talked a lot about this, I think that is going to spur even greater interest in the Amherst schools, and it will have a positive impact on enrollment. Great question.
Now, I have another question.
Sure.
This is probably for the treasurer. How is the, you mentioned new housing coming up, and most of those houses in the Lorraine Park have been a lot of tax abatement. How does that affect the district financially?
Well, fortunately, that issue, as we understand it, was just resolved. I think it was here in the paper. What was it, maybe a week ago, I think there was an article?
Yeah, about a week ago.
Yeah, where there was a pending case, I guess, with the city of Lorraine and some taxpayers that lived in the Amherst School District, and as part of that settlement, and I don't have all the details of that, but it's my understanding that Lorraine City Council abatements will end moving forward. So that there are obviously some places that have already been platted. Those are obviously already in place, but it's my understanding that moving forward, that program will end. So that's a good thing for the Amherst schools.
Mathematically, a house that's on abatement will not go on the valuation, therefore we will not collect taxes on it.
Correct.
So until that abatement is expired, then it will come on the valuation and then we will collect.
Yeah, it's gonna help. Now, the other question I have, and this, I'll stop at this one.
No, that's why we're here.
Now, I know that the new Myers coming in. Is that Meyer or? the new
Yes.
store place? So to that your tax base as well?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
okay.
Yes, I believe that will positively impact.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
That will increase our commercial valuation. So that-
Yeah, now, what it actually means in terms of dollars, we wouldn't know at this point, but we can say that'll have a positive impact on it.
Now, is Walmart yours too?
Walmart? No. No, Walmart's in Lorraine. That's Lorraine. Yeah.
Thank you for the questions.
Good cuts.
Thank you.
Very good question.
Other questions? Come on. Any questions? Any
I do have
comments?
another question.
Anything? Yes.
Now, the 2020 to Costa Rica, are the kids gonna have like fundraisers or parents, or what, have you guys, how are you guys gonna fund that? Because I know you said the hall, which is great, and I know that some kids may not be able to afford it. So what are you guys planning to do?
Sure. Mike, you want to speak to that? What's that?
Costa Rica question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why we're having the meeting, the first meeting tomorrow night. So we're having plenty of time in advance because, yeah, we're going to talk about some fundraising for students, talk about how families might be put on a payment plan to kind of put aside a little bit of money every month.
That's why.
Don't blame ya.
We'll look to do some fundraising for students, and we really want the opportunity to be there for kids. And we know some students, might have difficulty, so we'll try to do the best we can as a school district to kind of help them out.
Anything else? Okay, a couple things just in closing. First of all, on behalf of our board, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to be here this evening. We never know what kind of turnout we're going to have, and of course tonight was kind of a warmer temperature night, and there's things that you could have been doing, working in the yard and all those kinds of things, but you chose to be here, and we appreciate that very, very much, and we just thank you for that, and thank you for your support of the Amherst Schools. I also wanted to mention, and Chuck, I'm glad he remembered because I would have forgot, but Chuck Grimmett, our Buildings and Grounds Supervisor, brought up some pictures. Please feel free to take a peek at some of these renderings of the new elementary school. It's kind of exciting to see it come together. Also, keep an eye out for tours. As I mentioned, we're going to be conducting in the spring and summer as we inch closer to the opening of the new school. If you're interested in one of those, just send me an email. and we'll get you on a list and do the best we can to get you a tour. And the last thing I wanted to mention, I knew what you were thinking, Teresa. The last thing I wanted to mention is we are kind of making a last-ditch effort. Technically, the deadline is passed, but we're still trying to give everybody who wants to purchase a brick that opportunity. So we will see, actually, it's a rendering here on the top right. In the new school, there will be kind of 4 sections, and one for the current Powers, one for Shoup, one for Harris. And if you're interested in purchasing a brick that will go in that display, we have those forms available. It's $100. This serves as a fundraiser for the Amherst Schools Educational Foundation. And then, of course, the 4th one there will be, we'll have the plaque for the new Powers Elementary. So, yes?
I should point out, these are not new bricks, these are old bricks from
Yes.
buildings that have been
Yes.
demolished.
Great clarification. Yes, these are not, these are bricks from the buildings that have been demolished. Actually, as part of the demo, I think we have about 500 bricks from Harris and from Shoup, and we'll have another 500 from Powers as well. So these are bricks from the buildings that are being demolished. Did I forget anything? Anything at all? Okay. Thank you again. Thank you. Have a great evening.